Go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We have a great presentation for you tonight. We have Mary Zimmerman from Chandler, Arizona, who's a CFP and an RLP. Mary has a passion for talking about money and meaning. Passion has taken her around the globe, including twice to India, where she led the 7 stages of money maturity trainings based on the work of George Kinder. She's the founder of PATH Financial Strategies. PATH is an acronym for Planning at the Heart. Mary is one of the founding members of Kinder Institute of Life Planning and was their first trainer in the United States. She's a former board member of the Financial Planning Association of Greater Phoenix and is trained in the art of hosting conversations about money. She's a member of Mensa of the U.S., the National Association of Tax Professionals, the National Society of Accountants, and the Nasruddin Project, a global think tank of financial professionals dedicated to the human and spiritual aspects of money. And that's where I know Mary from, and I count her as one of my dear friends. And also, she is certified in levels 1 and 2 of spiral dynamics, which is how she came to be our presenter. So Mary, I'm turning it over to you. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Dottie. And I thought I would add just a little editing to that description.
Okay.
That Sharon Bumgarner and I are actually returning to the Financial Planning Association of Arizona as what do they call? They're calling us late career now.
Yeah.
But it was so wonderful that we're both wanted at this stage in life to do some stuff with financial literacy. So it's been a blast so far. So I just wanted to mention that. That's my passion. So there we are. And so happy to see everybody and so happy you're here to get in on a discussion about spiral dynamics. Debbie mentioned that we have a good friend, Dick Wagner, actually. That's how Deb, Paul, Dick, and I all went to one of several that I've been to spiral dynamics workshops led by Don Edward Beck from Dallas, Texas. And Dick was really the inspiration for, I think, all of us going. Deb, don't you? I mean, he was the one that made it sound like you've got to learn about spiral dynamics. Dick, I would describe as probably the greatest thinker and wisest human about money and how it works in our world. He's able to describe things in very elevated ways that nobody else is talking about. No one else had thought about until Dick Wagner came around. So when Dick started being this huge proponent of, you've got to learn about spiral dynamics, I really want you to go to one of these workshops and see what you do. So I went, and I was very surprised by how my vision of the world changed by going to spiral dynamics. So I don't know if it'll have that big of a change for all of you, but it's a different way of looking at life. Spiral dynamics was actually thought up by a man by the name of Clare Graves. And in the 70s, he wrote an article that Don Beck happened to read, and he said, this is what's been coming to me and coming at me. This is it. I've got to meet Clare Graves. So he actually got on a plane. He may even have been just a graduate school working on his PhD at the time. He got on a plane. He went to meet Clare, who at that time was not in great health, and so was not able to do a lot of moving around as far as travel went. So when he and Don talked, and the synergy between the two of them was so great, Don was going to be just like Eleanor Roosevelt. Don would be the ambassador that went out and talked to everyone, found out what was going on, and would bring the information back to Clare. Don said, I need at least 12 years of you, Clare, because he was not in good health. And by golly, he made it the 12 years so that Don was able to study with him and gain his wisdom from spiral dynamics. To describe Don Beck is a really interesting thing. What I would like to do is just, unfortunately, he passed in 2022. And because I love obituaries, I'm an obituary fanatic. I read them all, and I love people I've never met through their obituaries. So here's something from Don Edward Beck, who died on May 24th, 2022. He was a teacher, geopolitical advisor, and theorist who spent his life trying to make the world a better place. It goes on to talk about his family. Then it says, to encapsulate Dr. Beck's achievements as a world citizen, as well as his passions, dreams, and sense of optimism would take volumes. Every day, his thoughts were focused on the mechanics of world conflicts and making them solvable. His insights into the South African social and political system led him to make over 60 trips into all regions, making personal connections with no less than F.W. de Klerk and Nelson Mandela. I would say my own personal aside is that Don helped to bring about the peaceful end to apartheid. He played a big part. 60 trips to South Africa during that time. He created the spiral dynamics theory, an evolutionary human development model. He was also known throughout the country as a sports psychologist, writing columns on the subject for the Dallas Morning News. Dr. Beck established the first Center for Human Emergence in Copenhagen, Denmark, and made many consulting trips to the Netherlands, and later created the Center for Human Emergence in the Middle East. In 2007, he addressed the United Nations on the subject of global governance. And one of his friends said it best, we mourn the passing of a significant thinker and great humanitarian, Dr. Don Beck, respected advisor to national leaders, from Tony Blair of the United Kingdom to President Fox of Mexico and Nelson Mandela and his staff on the South African reconciliation process, as well as the Dallas Cowboys, Southwest Airlines, and Whole Foods. His warm humanity extended to all peoples. So that's a piece of Don Beck, quite an interesting gentleman. He's a good old Texas man, and just has a heart of gold, and would always surprise me with his wonderful compassion and sweet way of wording the world in a loving way. So that's where we're going to start. So this modality, and a lot of you have talked about, I think models like this I've been exposed to, and it's probably true. The closest model that this spiral dynamics comes to, reminds me of at least, is Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And Clare Graves and Abraham Maslow were good friends, as a matter of fact, and worked on a lot of synergetic things. The model really isn't, I would say hierarchy of needs is more the human development. What spiral dynamics is really about large scale change. So you look at the large scale psychology, and this has to do with societies and with religions and with music groups. And it can take just a panacea of different venues, and all of those things can be put through the spiral. It's a values-based model. It's called a biopsychosocial map because it really encapsulates a lot. And I have to read to you because I think Dottie was asking me, well, you can give a good description of spiral dynamics. This is how Clare Graves tried to explain it briefly. What I am proposing is that the psychology of the mature human being is an unfolding, emergent, oscillating, spiraling process marked by progressive subordination of older, lower behavior systems to new, higher order systems as man's existential problems change. So there's a little synopsis of what it is. A little hard to describe, and that's why I'm just so happy you're spending time with me, so we can go through the model and see why does it make any difference that we have this model, and let's get with it. So if we can share the screen now, see if this works. We've had some couple of issues. So we're starting down at the bottom, and we're working to the top of the pyramid here. Several things about the spiral, just to give us kind of a roadmap for what we're looking at. We speak in colors in spiral dynamics. So we'll talk about the beige meme, which is the survival instinct there at the bottom. So you can see that each of the memes, which they describe memes a little differently. It was before we had the internet going as popular as memes are now, that this is from the English biologist Richard Dawkins, because he looked at the idea of memes as self-replicating packages of information that propagate. So that it's widespread in beige, and then we move up to purple and it's propagating up there. When we're down in beige, we are at an individual level. When we move up the spiral, we're in purple, tribe and family, which is group. So we go from individual to group, and then we go red is individual again, truth and order is group. And so it goes individual, group, as we go up. These first 6 up to humanistic, egalitarian, the green meme that you see, the first 6 is called the first tier of spiral dynamics. When Clare Graves began coming up with this model, he knew that something was coming. He was able to see all the progression that was being made in society and knew something big was coming. And he actually calls it now the momentous leap, because we're able to see now the yellow meme and the turquoise meme. When Clare began studying this and coming up with the model, he couldn't see beyond what the current life conditions were. So life conditions actually move you up the spiral. As you go up the spiral, you transcend and include, so you can bring everything that came before you with you. But you cannot see or understand the meme ahead of you. So while you're in the strategic enterprise orange, it's hard for you to see or understand the humanistic egalitarian meme. So that's a little bit of it. So we're going to talk about the momentous leap, and we're going to talk about these 6 memes before that. Anybody have any questions? And please interrupt me anytime you want to, that's fine. Okay. You can chat it in the box too if you have any questions. So the very beginning of spiral dynamics is down at the bottom in beige. This is your survival instinct. These are the innate senses that we have. This is survival, health, fitness. It's about sharpening our instincts, because we're just like the cavemen. This started 100,000 years ago. This is about the time frame on this, 100,000 years. So this is when you've just got people roaming around and all they do is, procreate when they find each other. So it's very reactive. They're just out for their own survival. This is where I was going to have the music. No, I was going to see, Dottie, if I could even bring it around. Let's see. See, I'm not sure if you guys can hear this or if it's worth doing tediously. Can you hear it?
No,
Not at all.
no.
Well, there it goes. I thought we'd try another tack. That was the theme song from Survivor. So you'll have to use your imagination. Da, 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 da. So that's where we're going with that. You're alone, you're seeking survival, and you start running into other human beings. Now we're at about 50,000 years, and people are starting to understand that they can actually attract people and be with them and make their work a little simpler and work together. So we're up in tribe and family. This is all about security. It's about family. It's very magical, this meme. This is that they start beginning to believe and obey the desires of a spirit being that they've come up with. They show allegiance to the chief. You have an elder. You preserve sacred objects. You observe rites of passage. And so now we're in all that's human about us. Survival is human about us also. We're all after our own survival. But now in tribe and family, bringing it up to current, where we are currently, you can look at families that attract each other. You can look at sports teams who are tight, and they are so tight that everyone wears orange socks on game day or they're never going to win a game. So, you know, you have this magical mystery part that's working with you there. You've got the also you're very loyal to your tribe. Don Beck had us watch one time Lord of the Flies to see what it's like, you know, what makes a group and what makes a group come together and what makes a group go against another group so rapidly, which we can see in a lot of phases today. We look at the Hatfields versus the McCoys here. So it's into a group now. It's your family. You're loyal to your tribe. And it's us versus them as well. So on this one, you can imagine music in the background being, "We are family." That's what, I don't know if you saw my text, Deb, that was about. But music goes up the spiral too. That's what I wanted to show. But "We Are Family" would be a great song at that point in time. In red, also in purple, it's "You're Wishing Upon a Star." Don Beck's talked about being in purple when his dog passed. And he is a lover of dogs. And he knew the dog was talking to him in the afterlife. And he knew that things were going on where the dog was signaling that he was okay. And so it can be any of that magical thinking that goes on. If I'm just good, you know, and that'll get a little, I'll wait on that one. That's not a good example, but just all the superstitions that we have, all the things that we think will work because they've worked before, you know, become those superstitious things that we bring with us. So we're in the tribe and we're in the family, and things don't always go well in our typical family. So you want to break out. Now you want to get, you just want to express yourself. You don't want to do what's going on with your own family. So you'll express, but very impulsively. So now we're going up into red. So red is about 10,000 years ago. And the world is a jungle full of threats, full of predators. You're going to stand tall, demand respect, or you're going to be just like the predator and the prey. You're going to be one or the other of them. So in red, you have the predator, you have the class bully, but you also have the prey, and you have the person that's being bullied is in this meme. There's no thought that your actions have any consequences. So you're just out there being rambunctious, being a bully, thinking you can do anything. You've got the swagger. In here, we see not just gangs, not just well, we'd say you got gangs, you got a 16-year-old that's ready to break out that may not be in a gang. You've got a 2-year-old that's in the red meme that isn't going to do anything but what the 2-year-old wants. So it's about power, and it's breaking out, and no idea if there are going to be any consequences. So you're there for a while. And I had there's that, I had a rap song all ready for you that was self-destruction. And I don't know if you've heard it or not, but it was a bunch of rappers got together. And it was a wonderful way of saying, look, we've got to look at what we're doing to each other here. Like the Crips and the Bloods, we're killing each other. We're Black people killing each other. We're Irish people killing each other. What are we doing? This isn't working. And if we go out, I've seen in front of me, one of my friends killed. So that whole idea that your actions have no consequences is starting to fall away. And you're looking for something that makes sense and goes into it. So,
Mary,
yes.
this is Deb. Isn't red also the explorer? I'm going to leave home. I'm going to leave the comforts of my tribe, but I'm going to go explore a new world. I'm going to go do something different. It may not be a bully. It might be just, I'm going to go explore.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely, Deb. Because you can go explore, but not know that your explorations are going to take you down a wrong path,
Right.
But they could take you down a good path. Yes, that's great. It's mainly the breaking away. Yeah. So, but they try and outfox, but it's more a maneuver rather than being a thoughtful way of doing things. So we can talk about, there's a lot of things. In Arizona, Sharon knows this, we have all of a sudden this gang of Gilbert Goonies, and they're white high school kids who are, they actually beat someone up and killed him. It's crazy that where did it come from? I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what's happening there, because it seemed to be in a very blue area, and we're going to go up to blue next. So now we have this self-destruction rap song. What are we doing here? We're killing each other, and what are we, it's not about the gold chains anymore. I lost my best friend. So they're looking for something, and this is a wonderful way, and you may know a lot of nonprofit organizations that will go around the streets and try and bring people out of the gangs that they've been involved with. And many times it's teaching them Christianity, or this wonderful way to follow rules now. The YMCA would take in members and try and first teach them rules. You have to know the rules before you can do anything. But there's a longing for that when you're coming out of red and into blue, because in blue, what you understand is that there are consequences for what you do. And you can sacrifice now for a reward later. So now we're talking about, rather than having no consequences, now if you look at the Christian aspect of that, it would be, but now I can do good on earth and my reward is going to be in heaven. Okay. It's a great organizing system. And there's a real thought when we look at society and take a look at this, that we're losing that blue meme in society. We don't have the rules and the order and that everybody plays by before they go up to the next meme. So if you skip a meme without making that meme healthy, without being good in blue, for instance, during tax season, I had a tax practice for years. I am very blue because I'm dealing with tax law, and I'm dealing with, it's yes or no on whether you get to take the tax deductions. And so we're dealing with the law. I want my engineer to have strong blue in him, or her, so that we get a strong bridge, or a condo building in Florida for that matter. So here it's talking about stability, justice. There's a lot of purpose to it, a lot of morality to it. When you look at religions, these are much more the dogmatic types of religions, the ones that really have the rules, really have the order. And charity comes here as well, and it's charity from the heart, because if you do good works, again, you'll be rewarded.
How long ago was that, Mary?
And that one, yeah, 5,000 years ago. Thanks for the question, Dottie. I've got about 6 things in front of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 5,000 years ago. Yeah. Then that's, and interestingly, here's also where, if you look at the unhealthy part, so impulsivity is controlled through guilt. So I was raised Catholic, so I know a little bit about that, but I'm sure we all have different ways of feeling that guilt. But also, this is the law and order, this is the regulations, and this is where the discipline really builds character. So it's healthy. We have healthy and unhealthy within each of the means. So you're doing good, you're following the rules, you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and you're just not happy. You just don't, you feel like something's going on. Maybe you don't fit in anymore. Maybe you don't want to fit in anymore. But now we're going from our group of blue, and we start breaking out into our individual selves. So this is, the ant can't move a rubber tree plant. We can move the rubber tree plant. We can go into this, and we can be our best self. In the blue meme, we were choosing things because they were the right thing. In orange now, where we're trying to make more money, perhaps, where we're trying to make ourselves better, it may not be the right thing to do. It may be the best thing to do, and you go for the best thing. So in orange, this is where we are in capitalist America, where we have winners and losers. Again, we have climbing the corporate ladder. Again, if you have that visualization of climbing that corporate ladder, many times you're stepping on people on the way up. So it can be a dog eat dog world in orange. This we're talking now 300 years ago, Dottie. I'll keep the timeline in mind, 300 years ago. But change and advancement are up to you. You can change yourself. You can become better. This is Anthony Robbins, knowing your best self. You progress by learning nature's secrets and seeking out the best solutions. You're optimistic. You're very risk-taking here. And self-reliant people deserve success. So you work hard, and it's your claim to fame that you can be successful and make more money. Societies prosper here, though, through strategies, through technologies, and through the competitiveness. Everyone gets better. So you've got the athletic teams too. You've got great competitive here. You've got high hopes. We've got high hopes. We know when to hold them, but we know when to fold them. So again, we have people who make it, people who don't make it, and you've got healthy and unhealthy. It's really interesting to see what's happening with capitalism now. How do we make capitalism healthy? Or if you agree that it's unhealthy now, which is where I am. So it's coming out of that tradition, just like from Fiddler on the Roof in blue, we're in tradition. This is making your own way. The music I had for this one was from the Jeffersons. Remember the movie, the show, Moving On Up to the East Side. So it's you have options here, but you're choosing the best choice, not the right choice that you learned when you were in blue. And you're not loyal. Everything is up for sale. This is where a lot of America lives, is in orange. And some people never see above the orange meme where they are. They're just trying to get ahead all of their lives. And if they're falling back and they're not meeting with success, they try something else and go again. And it's individual choice. It's all about your performance. How many classes you can take, how many certificates you can get. But mainly in America, it's how much money you can make. So that's the orange meme. So just well, let me go one more. I'll go up the first tier and then we can start using some examples so it won't be quite so didactic here. So as we are in this corporate world and we're working our butts off and we're Saturdays, long days at the office, making money. Now we got a family to take care of. Now we've got college kids, to think of with the kids. And we're burned out. It's, is this all there is? That whole is this all there is? And what that does is move people up into the green meme. And it was green before green meant what it does today, but it's very appropriate as green. This is looking inside yourself now. Now we're going to go from that outward sign of success. Now we're going to look inside. The music I had for this one was Barbra Streisand singing People. People who need people are the luckiest people in the world. You're really looking for a human bond. You're looking for that connection with people, the sense of fairness. Everyone's equal. Everyone has a voice. And you can see where we are with this. One of the things about green is that they call it as many wonderful things it has to do. This is diversity and inclusion, and everybody has a voice. We're all mindful. We're sitting around, in kumbaya. And it's called the swamp because nothing ever gets accomplished. We're too busy hearing everyone's ideas, listening, opening up, allowing for everything in the circle. So it becomes a consensus place, and it's hard to gain consensus on just about any topic. So this green has its issues too, as healthy as it may seem.
And when did green come in?
Green came in 150 years ago.
Thank you.
Now, feeling, sensitivity, and caring supersede rationality, cold rationality. Spread the Earth's resources and opportunities equally among all people. Reach decisions through reconciliation and consensus. Refreshes your spirituality. It brings harmony and enriches human development. Again, a wonderful place to be. And it can be healthy or unhealthy, depending. So any questions? I'll give you a couple of examples because you're probably going, and so what? And maybe following yourself up through the spiral. Any questions from anybody so far? This is the first tier of the spiral.
Are you going to include the last three at some
Yes.
point? Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you.
I thought I'd give you a break from all of me speaking at this point.
Thank you, Mary.
Any questions from anybody? This is one of my favorite stories because I told you Don Beck was a Texan, and he was a consultant. He's done a lot of work. He's worked with professional teams, especially with the NFL. He was a sports writer, as the obituary said, for the Dallas paper. And one of his consulting gigs was in Texas, where, if anyone knows much about Texas, there are highways and freeways. And back in the old days when Lady Bird Johnson had the Keep America Beautiful slogans, they started getting, there are a lot of wildflowers in Texas, but what they started noticing were the cans Hopefully they were pop cans, but they could have been beer cans. And as Don said, it's, what's happening. It was, the cowboys in their trucks, and they were chewing tobacco and spitting in their empty can and then tossing the can out the window. So the community wanted to come up with something new, something refreshing, pick up after yourself, whatever it was going to be to get things tidier and have Texas look better. So Don was on this consulting team, and he used spiral dynamics in a very interesting way, because his comment to them was, you tell those cowboys to pick up after themselves, and they're just as likely to take a gun and shoot at that sign you just made that tells them to pick up after themselves. So how do you affect change? And so they worked on things, and they came up with a slogan. And does anybody know what that might be from Texas?
Is it don't mess with
Don't
Texas?
mess with Texas. That's right.
Right.
That's a
I have a
Texas
coffee
coming
cup
back
with that
to you.
on it.
That's right. So has everybody heard of that "Don't Mess with Texas"? It's a bumper sticker on a lot of cars. You see it all over Texas. But what Don Beck did was, and you think about it, you've got these cowboys who are right in the red meme, right? They're rough and tough and tumble. They're ready to ride bulls. And what he did was go down into purple. Because what is it about Texans you can always depend on?
We're travel.
What was that?
So I said they're pretty travel. I grew up in Texas.
They're
Yeah.
very tribal, because they are Texans.
Mm-hmm.
They are Texans, by golly. They
Yes.
are proud of being a Texan. So he went down into purple to get everybody on the same side here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't mess with Texas. So this is now, he's talking to me. I'm a Texan. He's talking to me in this. And I'm not a Texan, and he went up into red, where they're in your face, with something like, don't mess with me either. I'm a Texan, and don't mess with me. So don't mess with Texas, and to keep it clean. And that was how it went out. So the University of Texas in Austin had a group of folks that were working on some surveying of the area. And they measured what trash was like on the highways prior to the campaign and what the trash was like after the campaign. And they found that there was a reduction of like 60 or 70% less garbage thrown out of the cars just because of this "Don't Mess with Texas" campaign. So that's an example of ways they can happen. And Paul and Deb, I don't know what your experience was in our workshops, but I would always see a lot of people in organizational development come, psychologists, OD, anybody else that you would see that were interested in the topic.
No, but I will say that was one of my favorite examples of where to find where people are and use that in working with them as opposed to going higher.
Right.
Yeah.
From a lofty place. And it's so top down coming that way also. Yeah, thanks, Deb. I'm from Arizona and an Arizona State University football fan. Years ago, there was a rough and tough, gosh, what was he, offensive tackle, but his name was Curly Culp. I don't know if anybody remembers Curly Culp from Arizona State. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Curly Culp was one of the meanest, toughest football players in the country. And everybody knew it, and his reputation was widespread. And of course, we loved it because he was on our team. But he was going through the contracts after he got, drafted into the NFL. He didn't know what was happening. And they didn't like that he didn't understand it. And Don was helping with the contracts with Curly Culp. And he said, what we were finally able to do, because he lived in red, you know, he was rough and tough and just learning some of the new rules that he was going to have to be living under. And all this money is coming at him. So what they were able to do was take him down where he knew things down, you know, he lived in red, but what he knew in blue was that it was his job to sack the quarterback. So what they did was take the contract to him and designed it in ways that he understood. And so he got paid money for every quarterback sack he had in the NFL. And so he knew that in order to make money, this is what he needed to do. You know, so he could, depending on his playing time, so they broke it down, but they put it into that blue definition of what it was going for. If you know, so he had a lot of sacks and he had quite a successful career. Isn't that right, Paul? I can't remember who he played for in the NFL. But anyway, that's and it's interesting. I was when we get a little higher up, I don't know if any of you watch Fareed Zakaria on CNN, but he's what I think he's a pretty good example of yellow leadership in what he does. But he was interviewing the president of Iraq, and I was blown away by the language that he used about the Middle East countries. It was something that I'd never heard from someone in the Middle East. And a lot of it was going down into purple, but it was using, he would use the words that I wrote down were, and the countries in our neighborhood, da 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 da. And we, you know, in our neighborhood with our neighbors. I mean, it was, his language was wonderful because it was including all the Middle East countries to make things better. But it was going down into purple where people could really understand it, bringing it up into, we can do some law and order among all of us. But most particularly, he himself, you could see the green meme coming out in him, that he wanted everyone involved, and that was what was going to make the world better.
So Mary, Paul has his hand up.
Oh, yes, Paul.
Yeah, my question back to your discussion on Texas and the cleanup program they had. I know that there's been a lot of things going on in Texas, and it vacillates a fair amount. Would you say that in Texas today, and I don't know, oh, you live in Arizona, if they still stand by that motto and that it works, or has it become passe and everybody's back to throwing their cans full of chew out the window again?
Well, there are different things going on in Texas. And I can only speak because my son's in Texas, Paul. I do still see don't mess with Texas.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's nice to see the bumper sticker. Are they actually practicing it?
I would say yes. Do the highways look better? That's we don't travel them as much, but I would say so.
The reason I asked the question,
go ahead.
The reason I asked the question is because here in the Northwest, we're seeing a lot more trash up and down the highways. At least I am. And of course, Oregon has the bottle bill, so you can still pick up cans. Washington doesn't. But if you pick up the cans in Washington and find your way to Oregon, you can get 10 cents a can. But what I'm seeing is just a tremendous, much more amount of trash just openly on the highways. And that surprises me given our states.
Yes, that is surprising. I don't know how many of you watch Mad Men. I don't know if you watch Mad Men. Do you remember the episode where they were all at a picnic in the park and they just got their their blanket up and folded it and left all their trash behind in the park, because that was what we did. That's what we used to do. So it's a learned behavior to pick it up, but you're seeing a negative impact, it sounds, Paul.
That's just me.
Yeah, but and how does Oregon, Washington, how do they deal with it right now? I mean, are there like groups to pick up certain miles of highway like they do in Arizona? Or is
Volunteers that come out and do some pickup. I have no idea how successful that is or how many they get. I think the one thing that's intriguing to me with this scheme is I think we float up and we float back down. And so for every 2 steps forward, you may take a step and a half backwards. So you're never quite sure. You're probably living life more in the bottom tier, and there's fewer people in fewer places that reach the upper levels. Is that a fair assumption?
It is. It is. And there are percentages that I'm not up on right now, but even to get into green, and I think they think 10% is a tipping point on this, and that could not be accurate, but I don't know that we've reached 10% even in the green meme worldwide.
Wow.
That I would expect that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Who else?
Sharon?
Well, where do you think we are today? That's what I'm sitting here wondering. Where are we at today?
Well, isn't it? Yeah, we can really. I mean, can't you see some of the? Well, you can see politics. You can see religion. We're going to go through some of these. You know, you can see music going through the different memes. What struck me about this so much was that if you're in Truth and Order, if you're in the blue meme, you can't see or understand the next meme. So, you know, I'm so puzzled by the fundamentalists and how they're taking on politics right now, for instance. But I see where there's no amount of arguing or showing another side or can't they see? Can't they see? And I hate using they because they probably say it about me as well. but it's they can't see the other side. You know, they can't go there because they're in their rules and following their rules. And not all religions, certainly, but that's one of the surprising ones. And we've got some games we're going to play with politics and other things too as we go.
So could you explain the yellow and turquoise, or the highest level that we're at right now before we
Yes.
to the other?
Yeah, certainly. Let's look at that.
And when they came in.
Well, so I would just ask, so Don Beck, I'll just do one more before we do that. Don Beck was a consultant both to American Airlines, since it was in Dallas, and Southwest Airlines. And they both had different philosophies. And he always, you know, he explains spiral dynamics to the people that he works with. And I think it was his name McCarty at American Airlines, their CEO for years. But he said, so, you know, here's how you have, now you've got a lot, you know, Southwest is cutting into your business. You know, they have a different business model. And he said, yeah, we're not changing. We're not changing, Don. We're orange. You know, that was where American Airlines was. We're orange. Southwest is, what would you think? Southwest Airlines. if you're looking at the spiral.
Well, it's supposedly about love, so I don't know what it would be.
I was
It's
going to
much
say,
more.
I would put American more at here's the order, here's how we do things. And Southwest kind of broke away. Oh, let's do this a little different, a little more egalitarian.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
everybody finds their own seats and we a little more level playing field, but and more interested at the early stages of innovation.
Well, they're almost tribal in that they promoted from within.
So that is, I think that's what, yeah. So I think green, definitely. Southwest is green. More, like you were saying, Deb, egalitarian. Their prices were lower than most, so more people could afford them. They were able to, everybody was listened to because everybody thought that those announcements were so boring that, they started singing their announcements or making up poems, when you flew Southwest. And yes, American Airlines, who was it that said they go by the rules? Was that you, Sharon? They definitely by the rules, but very, very much about the bottom line and being the stock of choice, making the quarterly,
Mm-hmm.
so making their quarterlies. So it's, and they were after what they told Don was, yes, we are after the professional business traveler. That's our person. That's who we're after.
In
So that's
Southwest,
why
the airline.
Go ahead, Sharon. Oh, you're on mute, Sharon.
I'm sorry. Didn't Southwest, weren't they the ones that you had to start at the bottom and work your way up? They didn't bring people in at the top from the outside. They had to be really immersed in their culture.
Could be.
So
Yeah,
was that more tribal?
Yes, but it's bringing tribal up into green, which is that, yeah, we're all together. Yeah, the family just got bigger in green. But the family of, yes, that would be purple, the Southwest pride of Southwest Airlines, for sure. Yeah, good observation.
Victoria.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Victoria has a question.
Yeah, Mary, I'm curious to hear about the top levels, but I'm also curious to know if there's a theory or idea about what is this evolution, what's causing it, how do we, is it possible to accelerate it for humanity, for ourselves, like just what's actually happening that this is a manifestation of?
It's a great question. The large answer is it's living conditions is normally what motivates people to move and change. Whatever our conditions of living are. Now, interestingly, and we haven't gone into it, but what do you think is the biggest change of the last 25 years?
Technology.
Internet.
Yeah. Yeah. So where would you put
Internet.
technology, Dottie? I mean, what meme is, where would you put technology?
Help me out here. I don't know.
Well, it's subject to whatever you think, but if you would look at healthy green, I mean, isn't that where we are right now on a Zoom call with technology that gets people together from all around the country, and we can have these wonderful discussions, like-minded people bringing things together. Does everybody need to have that? Some people will be happy all their lives. We have Texas relatives that are just salt of the earth, and their church is their community, and that's what they've known all their lives, and that's what they'll do all their lives. And I'm so grateful that there are people like them. And they see some orange because they want to take care of their families. They want the IRAs to be built out, and they want the farm to be passed down to the family. but it's not a dog eat dog orange for them. It's more of a practical orange. So it's, people are quite happy in their meme. It just depends on what happens. I mean, they're in technology, but their technology may be really great because they can get everybody at church together. They can, live stream their church services. Might be where they are. So Dawn would always say, and I know Sharon and Janine, I guess both of you have your hand up too. Dawn would say, everybody's fine wherever they are. They're doing the best they can. And he said, it's not a race to the top, because we actually have to, if you look at where you are and how you have evolved to get to where you are right now, we all have had to do the work, maybe go through some of the living conditions, maybe just expand our horizons, and what comes in is showing us different ways also. So Janine, is your hand up?
Did Sharon decide she didn't have a question?
I think that was left over. She had left
Oh,
it
okay,
off.
okay.
Yeah.
So I definitely heard what you said about like somebody in blue can't understand somebody in orange or green and so on. My question is, can somebody in green understand the other ones below it, or does that completely depend on their angle, their capacity, their individual capacity?
Yeah, as you move up, they call it transcend and include. So as you move up, you transcend, but it includes all the pieces of the onion below you. So just like Don Beck, who one of the most evolved people I know, he goes down into purple when it comes to his dogs.
Mm.
You might go into red just because you have a bad HOA, someone you're battling. So yeah, I think we all, and we understand where we are then more than, and so yes, so everything below us we understand, and that's really kind of the key to this momentous leap that we're going to take into the upper strata here.
Great. Thank you.
So Victoria, thank you. Janine, Victoria, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wondered what kind of data is available. I mean, have people been given questionnaires, or have there been, I mean, how can you say how many people are at a certain level and that they can't see the level above them? What kind of data, or what kind of?
Well, and it's a good question. And those centers for emergence that were talked about in his obituary, that's what those were started. So there are people who were doing it. My concern truly is it's hard to hold together. I mean, the Facebook page, the listserv, things live on now that Dawn is gone, and the consultants are still very heavy into the work that's happening. But do we have a replacement for Don Beck that's coming forward to champion spiral dynamics? People are working all over the world with spiral dynamics. There's still a good close inner circle that's doing things, and they were doing quite a bit of measurement for a while. That's how they knew. I mean, at that point, I think when I started learning about, I don't know, Paul and Dave, I don't know if you remember percentages, but I think it was like maybe 2% were in green. Not a large amount of people had even gotten to green. Clare Graves even had just inklings of what the green meme was going to look like because of his age and his living conditions. Nothing had propelled moving up to a new meme for him.
Yeah, I think the whole climate discussions have also forced us into a lot more green awareness. Aside from it being the color green, there's oh, wait a minute, we all need an earth to live on. What are we doing?
Yeah, that's a brilliant
technology was probably instigated in that strategic. It's like, ooh, how can we do this better? And, a lot of individuals that were making a lot of the technology work, but then it went into all the social media and And probably COVID in a way pushed a whole lot more into the green, because now we need this technology to all go to school. And oh, we need to get internet into all the different places of the world, because otherwise, it's not fair. So I think there's been a lot of dynamics over the last few years which have been pushing us towards that green meme.
Absolutely. And brilliantly put. I should have known the brilliance. That's what they say. Even, one of the things I read about COVID, it was one of the things that stuck with me. It was, I think it was a poet who had actually put it, that when you look at it in total, and this was in the first few weeks, we now know that the globe can stand still and have no cars on the road, nobody shopping. We've never experienced anything like that before. The entire world was able to stand still for a time. That was powerful. We have that power to do it. Now we know we can do it. I don't know if we'll ever be called on again. I hope it's not for COVID, but absolutely it could be for climate change. Tragedies occurring, maybe one on top of another, everybody involved. What does that look like, and what does it mean? And a living condition that would force us into listening to other people's ideas, for instance, in the green meme. That kind of diversity. Yeah. Got anything else? That's great stuff.
Well, Mary, I just wanted to say, I was so touched by what you read on his obituary about Don Beck, and the kind of consciousness that he had, that without somebody embodying that consciousness, I think we've seen this with religions and philosophies, and there's a weakening of the inspiration. So it's, when I ask about accelerating it or whatever, it's, in my mind, it really takes people with that consciousness out there embodying it too. So yeah, his loss, I don't know if that's your view, but when you said that, there are people still working on it, but without him, maybe it's not, I don't know, it's not as effective. I don't know exactly what you were saying, but I was so touched by the kind of person that he sounds like he was, and the way he carried this higher consciousness, I guess. So thank you.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Thank you, Victoria. That was really nice. Sharon, do you still have your hand up?
Yeah. How do you think artificial intelligence is going to affect all of this? I saw a thing the other day on TV. They were showing some of the work the Russians are doing and how they're using artificial intelligence to put people into, it's stuff to affect our elections and stuff, and how they're just putting people in there, and it looks like this. You've got the real person, and they're saying stuff that they're not, that person doesn't even say. You know what I mean? It's because we get back down here to truth and order and stability, and now and so many people won't trust any of the statistics of anyone, any of the data of anyone. I had someone the other day tell me, "Oh well, San Francisco is just being run over, blah blah blah." I said, "Okay." So I just said, "Okay, yeah." So this morning I went to the internet and looked it up, and actually the crime rate was down. And so in some of these towns, they'll tell you, "Oh, this is being overrun," and things, and you go look up the crime rate, and it goes, "No, it's actually down from a while back." So I don't know what the artificial intelligence and the mistrust of any kind of scientific data, it seems like, anymore. Anything that, any statistics anywhere, anything, it's hard to know what the truth is what I'm saying. How do we find the truth? How do we go back down here to the truth and order, to the blue, and have some truth and some stability again?
It's a giant question. Anybody want to take that? I mean,
Anybody? I don't know. That's why I'm asking you guys.
I wasn't. Yeah, just the technology question that we were talking about right now.
Yeah.
And Deb and Paul. I don't know if you were thinking AI, Deb. I was just thinking normal technology. This AI is a whole new stratosphere of what's
right. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't
Well,
know.
and is that something that's going to start pushing us, so to speak, up the spiral
I don't
or
know.
not? Or is it just part of the negative part of, there's good and bad in each one of them, healthy or unhealthy. And so where that part is the unhealthy, AI can do all kinds of good things, and it can also
Yes,
be
it can.
destructive. So
Mhm.
what is it doing in terms of impact on this spiral? But it seems like it would be a piece of doing something, maybe spiraling down, but I don't know.
I don't know if it's going to go down or up. Yeah.
No, it is. Well, it's interesting. It's like building the bridge. I mean, Sharon, what you say it just kind of gets to me that what is truth nowadays? How do we find truth nowadays, and what does it mean? And if it hasn't started in blue, one of the things that Don really believes that our education system is causing us to skip blue becoming healthy. You look at people, if you can think of somebody who's powerful and a bully and doesn't go by the law and order and the rules, and he's very staunchly in orange because he's a billionaire, you can see where if you don't have the standards within blue, that the justice, the morality, the authority that we all, I mean, Walter Cronkite, we believed him. That's the how do you do that? And I don't know, where do you all think, which meme did AI begin in?
Don't know, but there's complexity and uncertainty in the yellow. Maybe that's what's pushing us into the yellow, is to the complexity and uncertainty and the paradox that we're having to, that we need to embrace, and perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah. And actually, we can, if you want to do that, we can move up to these and before we have the discussion. But don't let me forget to talk about Don and South Africa. That's very important.
So Peg has a question.
Oh, is there more questions? Okay.
Yeah, there's one more.
Peg, I'm sorry, and I can't see everybody's hands up. I apologize. Peg.
Okay, thanks. When I look at this chart.
Can you speak up, Peg?
Yes, can you hear me?
Now,
You can?
yes.
Okay. It makes me think of David R. Hawkins. And I assume you know who he is. Is that? And I'm wondering about whether anyone within your group that studies all this has done any attempt to calibrate these in the way that he did in terms of verification of the level of awareness and truth or falsity. And that's kind of a question I have about it. The other piece of it is that with David Hawkins, one of the points that he used to make was that it doesn't take a vast number of people to implement transformation when people are at a higher level of awareness with more truth-based life understanding, that they can raise the level, the collective level, through just their presence. And when you say who's going to take over, I mean, these are all valid questions, but anyway, I just want to toss that out there, and I wondered about that.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I think that's right. I tend to believe that that's the case, that there's something about consciousness that will raise all ships with the rising tide. And I just don't have that information, Peg, as far as spiral dynamics right now, because I'm not as active as I used to be. And I don't know how much research they're doing on it at this point in time. But it's a wonderment.
Well, it's one more encouraging system to look at and to consider with respect to our evolutionary process. So I'm happy to see it. I had not seen it before.
Good. I'm glad
Thank you.
I really started looking at the world in a completely different way after I learned this model. So I'm glad you're liking it. Thank you, Beck. Thank you. So one thing about art, so we can move up to yellow now, which, gosh, when we started, Deb and Paul, do you remember too much about yellow? It was still one of those kind of a little hazy the way it looked. One of the folks so yellow, well, let's just go ahead and look at yellow. So it's functional, pragmatic, and competent leadership, paradox, complexity, and uncertainty. They manage the natural flow of life. They thrive and help thrive. It's a healthy hierarchy, authority and boundaries, principles, survival before compassion, authentic outcome measures. And on yellow, they talk about it as integrating and aligning systems, flex and flow. They also talk about in orange, the CEOs or the celebrities or the athletes, they get pumped up when they get adulation from the crowds. And, when people just tell them they're the most wonderful thing, or they get good reviews on the theater review. In yellow, it's acknowledged. I mean, it's an acknowledgement of, yes, we did a good job there. Now let's move on. I mean, there's no stopping it. It's the ego is not fed now by what occurs. So John Mackey has also, do you all know who John Mackey is? The founder of Whole Foods. So one of our Spiral Dynamics friends, she's a friend of mine actually, Cindy Wigglesworth, consulted with Whole Foods for a long time. And if you know the backstory in Whole Foods, the original store was in Austin. And John Mackey had this new vision of what he was going to bring into, he was going to bring stuff from the rainforest. He was going to be able to spread, he was going to be able to buy locally and also have the worldly things so he could help the whole world. And he had a wonderful vision, and he started this shop in Austin, Texas, and he worked and worked, and he'd have community events and community coffees where people could meet. And he was pretty beloved in the community. Well, they had a huge rainstorm that just came down and flooded the store. And I mean, I guess John Mackey, the story goes, he just walked in and thought, how can I can't even afford to get this place cleaned up. Can I ever rebuild? And then one by one, so I always get choked up, one by one, the neighbors started coming, brought their brooms, brought the buckets. But the community that he had fed for all these years, that he had ensured that they would have that kind of, not only have the local connection. They were all there and helped him get out of that jam and rebuild the store. And had it not been for that, that wonderful community that he was in, and seeing as he could, because in yellow, this is why they call it the momentous leap to second tier. When you're in yellow, just like we were talking about, we have all the layers of the onion below us. In yellow, you can see and appreciate and understand all of the memes and how they can work together. And that you want somebody in blue when you want, the building done. And you want somebody in orange when, you're trying to think about the best way to plan to expand your business. So John Mackey is used as a really great example of that, because his idea fed on everything below that. Cindy worked, I don't know how many of you know Ken Wilber, and if you do, raise your hand. Dottie and I were wondering who knew Ken Wilber in the group. Is it just Deb and Paul? Dottie. Okay, he's another brainiac.
Crawford.
I'm sorry, who else?
Victoria Crawford.
Oh, Victoria, hey, got all. Yes, so Don and Ken Wilbur worked for quite a while. Ken had an integral network and Don had the spiral dynamics. And so they had integral spiral for a while. And they separated after a while because, and it wasn't so much ego as it was in yellow. They knew that they wanted to depart because they weren't being true to their own standards of each. So there's been a little bit of naysaying between the two, but that's what, so in the integral world, so what John Mackey is used as a yellow leader because of that. So he was able to really live in green, you know, really do the egalitarian stuff, bring the community in, have the meetings. I mean, look at the world and see how he could, you know, save the rainforest. And he was very much in green, but as he built his business, the yellow leadership was really what allowed him to expand the way he did.
And
So,
when did they say yellow came in?
yellow. Well, Dottie, I don't have the same. 50
years.
50 years ago. That's probably right about the time that the store was washed out. Well, maybe that was a little early, but yellow is flex and flow. I always like the, this is where I hope AI goes, because one of the things in yellow is that it is complex in design, but simple in execution. So, you know, you can have all that brain power, all the stuff that goes into bringing something to the forefront, but the execution of it is simple. So we don't have to know everything all the time. You know, we came from a place where we didn't have a lot of knowledge. The internet exposed us to all kinds of knowledge, everything that we wanted to where I think a lot of us are boggled in their minds because of everything that we carry around in our head all the time. So yellow is really, they're simplifying it, but it doesn't mean that they're not making things better. It doesn't mean that the execution is not complex. It is. So those are the kind of leaders that you look at. When I look at yellow, I hadn't been with Spiral Dynamics very long, and Barack Obama had won the presidency. And I remember listening to his inaugural speech and was blown away by how it went. It addressed everybody in the spiral. He had, at one point in time, because I was taken aback by it, he said something to the effect of, and don't you think you can come after us because we will defeat you, or, you know, we will. I forget what it was, but it was, boy, it was red. I mean, it was really red, speaking to red there. And I thought it, as I was listening to it, I thought it was a wonderful example. I think he is probably in yellow leadership as well. I mentioned Fareed Zakaria. I think he's definitely a yellow newscaster, and I think there's a lot. So he's a great example of how the mind works. So Fareed, my way of seeing him, he knows the whole world and everything that's going on in the world, and he's able to synthesize it down to, here are the major points in this 1 hour show that we can tell you about what's happening in India. We can tell you about what's happening in Iran, you know, so we get the synthesis becomes the simple part, but there's a lot of complexity that went into figuring out how to tell you in that short, succinct way. And so what about the rest of you? Are we, I feel like I want to keep the model up, but we don't need to. Do you want me to take it down?
So are we in turquoise yet?
Well, no, we're not yet. I just went, okay, thank you, Dottie. Thank you for keeping me on track.
No, I mean, collectively, are we in turquoise yet?
Yes, we're coming. Well, only because I just wanted to ask if anybody else can think of someone that they would put in that yellow meme. Or a company that would be in the yellow meme.
I'm sure there are some, but I'm not offhand.
What, Mary, what about some of the religious teachers like the Dalai Lama and some of the sacred teachers that are out there? Would they be in yellow with their leadership?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you just look at the flex and flow of having to leave, their home. Was that Thich Nhat Hanh that had to leave? Victoria, you know the story.
Both, actually, both His
Dalai
Holiness the Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh both
Yeah.
had to leave. Yeah, had to leave.
Yeah, keep their integrity, and they're absolutely humble people that don't need accolades to do the work that they've been brought to do.
Mhm.
I'm thinking too on the female side, we've got Melinda Gates, and we've got a lot of people with a lot of power right now, a lot of females with a lot of power and a lot of earthiness behind them. And where will they be fitting in? I'm hoping we see Melinda in yellow. I imagine Oprah. I'd probably put Oprah in yellow as well.
Aren't a lot of isn't there a real change of what leadership looks like or is as you go up, like a lot of companies in teaching leadership, they're going, okay, instead of being the hierarchical sort of leadership, it's different people lead different parts depending on what their expertise exposure is. It's a very different from like the blue, which is a very hierarchical leadership. So when we even think yellow leadership, it's a very different thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I would, as a matter of fact, Victoria, if you don't mind, when we look at green, Victoria was involved in a CEO group for quite a while, and how they came together. And if you want to give some comments on that. I don't know when you came in, Victoria, because I can only see a few people at a time.
Yeah, I came in at green. So I'm not sure, Mary, what is it that you would like me to speak to with that?
Well, I think the fact that there was a need for there to be groups of people who were CEOs, the number of small businesses we have, the small businesses that are getting larger, the feeling of being alone. I think you had mentioned at one point in time that they don't have a peer.
Right. Yeah, they were all leaders, but they really were missing the connectedness and being together. And the head of that forum was the kind of like an old lion kind of guy. He was, in his, they were probably in their 40s, maybe early 50s, and he was in his probably late 70s. And so the leadership was there, but he was very, he was very old guard in many ways, but he was very tuned into it being about connections and support and really uplifting each other. Like you were saying earlier about the water lifts all boats, right? Yeah. So he was very much that way. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And would you see him as a yellow leader? I mean, definitely green, because he got the community of CEOs together and there was a need for it.
Yeah, I think he's a yellow. I think he would be a yellow leader. Would the yellow leader, Mary, be someone that probably one of their strengths is seeing the big picture,
Yes.
the bigger picture?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what they can see all of the levels below them as well. So they can see how everything's integrated as well. Yeah. Yeah. Wisdom is probably another name for it, as you say. The old lion.
And Mary, when you said that this came in 50 years ago, is that when a bulk, they saw a larger mass coming in? Or so could there have been people 75 years ago or 100 years ago that are yellow leaders that practice?
Yeah, that's something that's beyond my
yeah.
Because I would see the definition, but yes, I would.
Because I was thinking about like some of the, the famous philosophers that we hear about throughout time.
Well, they look at Martin Luther King.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little bit beyond 50, not a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah. Yes, I think so. Yes, Janine, you have something?
Yeah, I do. And this might, I don't know if so this might be a stretch, but I work with animals, and I have definitely worked with animals who are taking positive actions for their loved one and have no concern about whether anybody understands that they even have that capacity. And so, I mean, some of those animals that I've worked with, I would put them in yellow.
Well, I think that's beautiful. I really think it's beautiful. Yeah, we think of the human brain being the only one that works, but the empathetic piece of us could be better formed in animals than we have yet to know.
Yeah, I mean, for example, briefly, there was this one dog that would keep getting out of escaping his family's house in my friend's neighborhood. And she asked me, could I pick up the dog and go back and return the dog? And when I did, the woman who answered the door looked like she was in very poor condition. I don't know if she had a mental health condition or what, but my friend told me that every time the dog would get out, he would just walk down the middle of the road. And I'm like, that's not what dogs do when they get out. They go sniff the neighbors and, you know, and I realized when I saw the woman and talked to her, she could barely communicate, that this dog was doing this to get help so that somebody would see what was going on with his family. Yeah. So,
Communicating better than we communicate, probably.
and you know, I think that animals are so often not expecting humans to even believe that they can communicate. Yeah. So anyway, thanks.
Oh no, that's beautiful. Like I said, it's yeah, the expertise on the spiral is however you can see it. It's a sweet example, though. Thank you for that, Janine.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah. Anybody else whose hands I can't see?
No, there's none showing.
Okay. All right. So we'll hit turquoise. So now again, so in yellow, we're individual. Oh, the other thing about once the second tier comes alive, it's interesting that what Don would say is that we're starting the spiral all over again. So when we talk about this second tier yellow, we're talking again about our survival needs, our health, fitness, crisis management. You know, I think there could be a lot going on. And, you know, Deb, you'd mentioned climate change and what's happening. I mean, what do we do if we have several different tragedies all over the world at one time? You know, how do we look at the crisis? How do we survive? So I have a feeling that that's might be what's going on, and the condition, as you mentioned, that we're going into yellow then. So if we're looking at second tier, we're in some kind of a survival there. All right, moving up then to turquoise, we're in the group again. So this is, I guess, the John Mackeys of the world are needing to get together and talk and have some conversation. But with turquoise, it's very the song that I had of that was Neil Diamond's "A Beautiful Noise." So it's recognizing again what's going on below them, but it's very about balance and harmony. It creates energy and intelligence anywhere. So it's a huge leaderless meme. So it's self-organizing in that you can, one of the examples that they'll give in turquoise is AA, how all throughout the world, Alcoholics Anonymous folks know where they can go for a meeting. They know the setup of the meeting. They know the steps of the meeting. and you don't need a leader or someone to get things organized. Call them, make sure they're there, you know, all the things that happen. So there's going to be a lot more self-organization. Has anyone read The Starfish and the Spider? Anyone familiar with that book? So The Starfish and the Spider, the old system was the spider, you know, in the center of the web where everything, you know, the senior vice presidents reported to the CEO, and then the managers reported to the vice presidents, and so on. So you had the web of corporations. And with the new system of the starfish, what happens if you chop off one of the starfish's arms?
Grows.
Yeah, it grows back. So it grows another. So some of the examples, because it's been so long since I've been to they haven't had any spiral dynamics workshops, but at the time we were looking at Napster. Do you remember Napster, the sharing of music? How that went on? But it was interesting. There wasn't a healthy orange going on because the artists weren't being paid there, were they? So I think that's what put Napster under Google, even the beginnings of the internet. I think they're talking about AI now. They want that same kind of imagination and creativity going into the innovation of what's going to go on with AI. And how do you do it so that everyone is protected and safe at the same time? You know, having those blue orders put into AI. The main thing is that it can create the intelligence anywhere it goes. So with turquoise, we don't need the leader. We could all come together and we all have the collective intelligence. That's going to be really exciting to see and unimaginable at this point, right? So I can't see up to that point yet. I don't know what anyone else would think. 30 years ago is where we were looking at turquoise. And it says here, the world is a single dynamic organism with its own collective mind. Self is both distinct and a blended part of a larger compassionate whole. Everything connects to everything else in ecological alignments. Energy and information permeate the Earth's total environment. Holistic, intuitive thinking and cooperative actions are to be expected. What a world, right?
Yeah. You know, Mary, I think Gene Keys is a turquoise, I don't know what you'd call it, transmission. And it's a global, there's a global network of people doing their own personal contemplation and work with the Gene Keys. And I think that's a turquoise. And it came in about 30 years ago. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I see that Peg has her hand up. Peg?
Peg?
Thank you. I think a turquoise group that I would associate, or a group I associate with the turquoise, is the Quaker meetings, that there's no hierarchy, there's no minister. Everyone, you may know this, but is said and in contemplative fashion, and then only speak when you have something that is, you know, comes to you intuitively, your spirit. And so as far as religions are concerned, I would think of a Quaker meeting in that category of being turquoise.
That's right. That's and very intuitively done too, isn't it? Isn't there silence until someone's ready to speak?
No rituals, there's no music, it's just silence. There's no pastor. Structurally, there are usually, depending on the size of the meeting, several people, maybe up as many as 5 or 4, that function as an outreach group to the members, to address, you know, our human needs. If an individual has a question, a life question, the collective is called and people sit, and they only operate by consensus. And that means everyone is in agreement. And it may take a very long time on serious questions. There's a lot of responsibility for holding your position. And as far as, let's say, with slavery was an issue in the United States. And during that era, there were Quakers who had slaves. But during the, by the time the Civil War came, that population, the Quaker population, had wrestled with the issue for so long. And there were none to very few who even had any slaves, any longer. So it's a very different approach to life. And when there's a war, they see God in everyone. So they are the ones that will send relief and individuals to help the people who are being bombed. So
yeah. Oh, thank you for that. That's pretty amazing to hold that love for both sides. That's something I'd like to see for sure. Thank you, Peg. I know we're running short on time, Dottie. So I just have to tell the story of Don Beck though before we get off. And I wanted to put politics through the spiral and put religion through the spiral, but maybe we do a couple of quick things. But Don Beck, as was told in his obituary, made over 60 trips to South Africa to help bring about the peaceful end to apartheid. But one of the things he did that has become very famous, actually, is in the movie Invictus. Did anyone see that movie? Mm-hmm. Oh, good. So we've got a few people that's so one of the things about spiral dynamics, when you're trying to get large scale change to go on, it's finding that overarching goal that can bring people together. What is that one thing that they can do to bring people together? And it shows it very interestingly in the storyline, because there was a great, is it rugby? Was it rugby that were the speed bots or whatever they were called? Janine, you saw it, whoever saw it. Anyway, the big South African team. Actually, that year, as Mandela was coming in, had 2 Black players on the team. So all the Black people were so interested because the Black players were actually playing on the South African team and the white people were playing. And so the big thing that Mandela did was come out, and I don't know if it was that he came out on the field or if he came out for one of the big rallies or whatever, but he had on, I think it was the Springboks. I think that was the name of the team. But he, rather than wearing the suit, he had on the uniform of the Springboks. And so the whole crowd roared when they saw him. And then it showed pictures in the movie of all the bars. They started getting integrated, the people that were working and the people that were just watching, and everybody hugging everybody. And that wonderful overarching way that Don Beck came from sports. He knew how important sports was. So that was really going down into purple. And we are all South Africans because we are all for this team. And it's just one of the ways that he worked to help bring about getting people together in South Africa. So I wanted to be sure I gave you that one. Wonderful man, an incredible man.
Right.
Don Beck.
Thank you, Mary. It's 9 o'clock, so maybe we could take 5 minutes and have you just take one of the examples that you had and run it through just to get an idea, like religion or politics or whichever one, education, whatever one you thought would be most exemplary, just so people get an idea of how it works.
Oh, well, listen, why don't we go? I mean, we can go through, let's just real quickly do religion, maybe.
We didn't do the top one though, right?
No, we did do turquoise. That was with Alcoholics Anonymous.
Turquoise is not another one?
Red.
Yeah.
Yes, no, we did turquoise. Yellow was the Flex and Flow and John Mackey. And then turquoise was the leaderless organizations.
But above, there was another item on the list, and I think that's what she's talking about. The top of the
master.
spiral.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Yeah, they are really interpreting that right now. And I don't even have any information on that, Janine. Thank you. I see your question.
Example of Dr. Zach Bush. I think he's a really amazing example, systems thinker that's doing all kinds of things to incorporate regenerative gardening and health. He's a physician and all across and meeting with indigenous cultures and all of that. So and maybe the Dalai Lama would be another example.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that's it. And who did you say? Who were you talking about?
Dr. Zach Bush.
Zach Bush.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I'll just say what the Master Chaos, which is the equivalent of red, which is interesting. It has catalyzing whole system evolution, averting disasters and threats. I don't even say destabilize. I don't know what that, and destroy outdated and pathological ecosystems, creating newer functional systems, high awareness, courage, and self-mastery for the benefit of self and all, minimize harm. So the ecosystems are really coming into play. You're right, Janine. Thank you for that.
So you have a quick example?
I'll just do, maybe if I can save time, I look at, where we are. And of course, in the magic and mystery would be in the purple, but just to go to blue in Law and Order, that's where a lot of fundamentalist churches are. That's where a lot of Christianity, but you can look at Jewish, you can look at a lot of the religions and see where they've got the black and white. This is the way we go. This is the way we roll. When I think of an orange, a pastor, for instance, I'm more familiar with the Christian religion, but you look at Joel Osteen, right? The prosperity pastor in the orange meme. So you can see where he might be there. Then you move up into the green meme where everybody's involved and everyone's okay. Then you've got, your non-denominational churches. You have unity. Any other examples that anyone knows of that I'm not aware of?
Unitarian,
yeah, there you go. And then that's in the, when you look at green, but I also see yellow. When I'm in Los Angeles, I'll go to the Agape Spiritual Center, and it's amazing what happens there and how people show up, so if someone isn't there or the pastor's not there, somebody shows up. If they need an extra singer, somebody shows up. It's self-organizing in that respect, but it's also a very lift from even from the non-denominational, because one of their facts questions is this a Christian church? And the answer is, well, Christians come here. So I think, that's what I liked it too. So it's, it's that kind of a faith, but wonderful spirituality happening there. So that's just an example how you can take religion up the spiral. You can take psychology. Don Beck's brother-in-law, and this will be the last thing I'll say, but he was an Old Testament scholar, and he was able to take the Old Testament through the spiral too. So there's a lot of depth that I don't have that I could tell you, but you can take just about everything up the spiral. Education. Yeah. Anyway, that's okay, Dottie. I'll go on forever. So
you could go on forever, but thank you. We try to end close to on time. So thank you, Mary, so much. This is very interesting. And if anybody has a last comment to make, I'm going to put you on gallery view so I can see everybody. If you have a last comment, please just say it and quickly.
Well, thank you, Mary. Very interesting.
Thank you, Victoria. Thanks, Janine.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mary. And thank you, everybody, for coming and for your participation. And we'll see you next month.
Thank you. I loved every minute.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.